This past week in Morocco, 7 journalists were slated to go to court in 2 separate cases, but their trials were postponed. The allegations against them include threatening state security and questioning the country's territorial integrity. Other Moroccan journalists have been harassed and fined over their reporting. Just a few weeks ago, the Minister of Communication held a news conference boasting about media freedom in the country. And all of this is happening a little more than 5 years after the Arab Spring, which was born in North Africa, threatened to spread to Morocco. King Mohammed VI managed to quell the protests by promising reforms and delivering a new constitution which guaranteed, among other things, freedom of expression. Morocco does have media laws that protect certain freedoms. However, the wording of those laws is so vague, the possible interpretations are so broad that any reporting that crosses the line by offending the king, his officials, raising national security questions, or the status of Western Sahara can land reporters in trouble. The Listening Post's Flo Phillips now on the journalistic red lines, the red tape that reporters have to deal with, and the red ink on the balance sheet, none of which bode well for the future of journalism in Morocco.
Editorial red lines. Moroccan journalists call them les lignes rouges, and they have a finely tuned sense of where they are and how they are shifting. The lines emanate from Rabat, the capital and seat of Morocco's royal family. Any output that is seen as insulting to the king, his family, or members of his government is punishable by up to 5 years in jail. And those aren't the only punishable media offences.
In my opinion, there are really 2 other red lines that the authorities care about. The first is the issue of Western Sahara. The Moroccan authorities and separatists in the region are locked in a tug-of-war over the disputed territory, and the issue is currently being discussed in the United Nations. Some journalists attempt to question Morocco's position because they think it's necessary to show the other side's opinion, but the government considers this to be provocative. The second issue is with regards to terrorism. Morocco's 2003 anti-terrorism law is exceptional in that it stipulates mass media must not take part in the discussion relating to this issue.
The government's aim is to terrorize journalists and to reiterate the famous red lines that we've been talking about for 20 years now. They continue to hound journalists under the same pretext. This has always been the case, but is much more common nowadays.
Mati Monjib is president of the Moroccan Association of Investigative Journalism. He and his colleague Hisham Mansouri, along with 5 others, were set to go on trial this past week on charges of threatening state security and failing to report the foreign funding of their citizen journalism project. The trial has been postponed until June 29th. It will be the second trial for Mansouri in just over a year. He was arrested in March 2015 while working on a report about online surveillance and sentenced to 10 months in prison for, of all things, adultery, charges his lawyers say were fabricated. According to Monjib, fabricating charges against journalists has become the modus operandi for the Moroccan authorities.
This file is full of cases conjured up by the Moroccan authorities to pressurize independent journalists because they've chosen to express their opinions freely. There are hundreds of pages showing that I've allegedly threatened national security and that I've committed financial crimes.
Another trial was postponed this week, that of Ali Anouzla, editor-in-chief of the banned Arabic news site Lacom.com. He will be back in court for the 3rd year in a row on April 5th. This time charged with threatening territorial integrity. Anouzla has been in and out of prison since 2013, questioned about every aspect of his work, most recently for an interview he gave to the German newspaper Bild, which quoted him calling Western Sahara occupied territory. Anouzla says it was a mistranslation into German that Bild subsequently corrected, but the court case goes on.
We gave our support to Ali Anouzla because we believe solidarity with our co-workers is a central principle for us as journalists. However, at the same time, we should seriously consider why the authorities are treating Anouzla in this way. Other magazines and papers have written about this topic without getting into trouble because they approach it with historical context. You need to strike the right balance.
على الأقل إشارات أو صورة أخرى.
للحالات ديال المتابعة القضائية الآن.
All these cases against journalists are related to defamation or libel. They are not related to any red lines, but to rules agreed upon in the UN-mandated International Covenant of Social and Political Rights, which states that it is possible to restrict freedom of the press in cases that affect other people's lives, in matters of national security, public order, public health, or morals.
الصحة العامة أو الأدب العامة.
Over the years, the Moroccan media have seesawed between periods of relative freedom and tight restrictions. In 2011, as uprisings erupted across the Arab world, King Mohammed VI sought to keep the calm with a revamped constitution that promised, among many other things, freedom of expression and a variety of media protections. Whether the king really wanted reform or was just trying to avoid being swept up in the Arab Spring remains an open question.
ورأينا أنه خلال كل سنة 2011
We noticed through 2011, 2012 and parts of 2013, freedom of media increased. Not only on social media networks like Twitter and Facebook, but also in printed and digital journalism. However, from the beginning of 2013, the situation for the media here regressed.
يعني بدأ التراجع في صيف 2013.
The Minister of Communication has a very different view.
سنة 2015 سنة مميزة في النهوض بالحرية.
Every year, the minister hosts a press conference in which he outlines the progress his department has made. We spoke to him straight after the event. He was at pains to defend the government's record on press freedom and referred us to the new press code, which has been promised for 12 years now, but still hasn't made it past draft form.
بمعنى أن القانون شكل إطار.
The draft press code has formed a framework reinforcing freedom of speech, establishing media protections, and providing the social and political conditions necessary for the free practice of journalism. The government's record in the field of freedom of the press is honorable and positive. 2015 was unique, not only in terms of the new laws that were passed, but also not one newspaper was confiscated, not one website was seized, and not one journalist was imprisoned by the Court of Appeals.
النهائي بسجن الصحفيين.
Mr. El Halfi likes to talk about last year, but is less forthcoming about the way this year has begun, with all those journalists on trial. And then there's the money. New media investment rules in Morocco do not permit any foreign financing. And at the same time, domestic advertising funds are largely controlled by the government, which makes survival a real challenge for outlets like Ali Amar's Le Desk, that regularly pushes the editorial limits. Launched last September, the site has already published stories about the King's secretary hiring a PR firm to polish his image, a scandal at one of the country's leading banks, and the failure of the government's agricultural initiative, Morocco Vert.
Economic asphyxiation is a powerful weapon that has been used by the regime to destroy and eliminate independent newspapers over the past few years. Today, in an environment of extreme fragility, one has to be very courageous to publish articles that might turn investors away. So we at Le Desk are in a unique situation. I don't think anyone here has tried to do what we're doing, which is a paywall, an economic model based essentially on subscriptions. We've been online for 3 months and are in a trial run.
5 years on from the uprisings that sparked the King's new constitution, Moroccans are back on the streets. Reporters are still awaiting a new press code. Subversive media outlets are being starved of vital revenue streams. And dissident journalists are facing trial after trial. This is Morocco in 2016, and the battle lines are still red.
There are some news outlets trying to get past the red lines and the taboos that hinder journalism in Morocco. We mentioned the French-language news site Le Desk, launched by Ali Amar, and some of the stories it's broken. Le Desk has also been running an ongoing investigation into government internet surveillance of Moroccan citizens. Aside from subscriptions, Le Desk says it has financial backing to the tune of $750,000 from various investors who have collaborated with Amar on his media ventures. Then there is Telkel, a French-language weekly magazine founded in 2010 by Ahmed Benchemzi. Benchemzi has been repeatedly pressured by the Moroccan government, and in 2009, Telkel disappeared from the newsstands temporarily after it published an opinion poll on the first 10 years of King Mohammed's reign. Telkel started an Arabic-language edition, Nishan, in 2010, but it went out of business after the government leaned on companies to withdraw their advertising. We touched on the Arabic-language news site Lakome.com, which was founded by Ali Anouzla in 2010 and made its name by publishing stories about the cost of maintaining the royal family and on the king's habit of taking long vacations. Lakome was subsequently blocked in May of 2014, but it relaunched as Lakome2.com in August of last year, which, as of this writing, is still accessible online in Morocco.